Yeah, it is started.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining this call. Like I'm also totally new, let's say, to this kind of training setup with you guys. So I'm Amit. A brief introduction about myself, right? So I'm based out of Netherlands, working in Salesforce for last 12 years. I'm also a certified technical architect within Salesforce ecosystem, which is quite rare. So I had to spend a few years to achieve that as well. And I work also in healthcare domain for some customers. Recently completed my agent first license certification as well. And that's when yeah, I thought of conducting this session for you guys to help you go through the journey as well. And of course, there are is a shift in the market from Viva to Salesforce and Salesforce to Viva, depending on which company you talk to. So it is relevant at this point of time because many companies or many healthcare companies who previously invested a lot on Viva are migrating towards Salesforce License Cloud as well. So just to know my audience a bit, like how many of you have already worked on like Viva or any of the license industries? Is it all of you or is it few of you? You guys are curious to know more about it or what kind of backgrounds you guys are in? Okay, I see one hand up. You guys have worked on License Cloud or in Viva. How many of you have worked on Viva? Can you just raise your hand just for me to know?
Amit, most of the let me just brief you. So I
Mm-hmm.
believe I've already talked to Animas the regarding this. So
Mm-hmm.
myself, I am working in Salesforce ecosystem for last 15 years. I have around 20 years of experience overall. I haven't worked with LiveSense or Viva. I have just done one
Mm-hmm.
Viva migration thing, like the object structure and
Okay.
data migration. So that was not at all a project. Beside that, most of these people are not worked in
We,
or
mm,
even Viva. So there are multiple mixed category. There are people
got
like Deep is almost working for 14 years in Salesforce, and there are other people as well. Few of these people are new, like they are having 2 or 3 years of experience in Salesforce overall, but most of them haven't worked in Viva or LifeSales.
got it. Got it. Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Amartya. Uh, it was really helpful. So I can also curate or talk through keeping that in mind. Okay, let's start with the session. So I will take the screen. I'll try to present my screen now. Let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yeah, we can.
Thank you. So, as you know, right, Salesforce provides a kind of a guideline on how that exam will be structured for Agentforce Life Science. So I thought of starting with this so that we know where we should focus on during this session, right? And at the same time, learn what are the different concepts within Agentforce Life Science as well, right? So this certification is of multiple choice questions. So there will be a lot of MCQ questions, and predominantly it will have 3 or 4 different domains. So I'll quickly show you that as well. So the exam outline is mostly on 4 different parts. So the base part or the most part that will be covered during the exam is the admin part of it. And then we'll also have engagement planning and then the engagement execution and then finally the sample inventory and management. So while I talk through all of this entire journey of Life Science Cloud, so we'll also try to keep the business processes in mind. So I'll try to relate to real life examples of how this is done on the field so that you guys can relate what is actually happening on the ground based on the configurations and the customization that we do on the platform. So that's how I'll try to curate my talk through. So I created a study guide for myself as well, and I can share it after this session as well. So this study guide, I of course took some help from AI to make it look better and so on. Right. So this will also help me to present and talk through all the different topics. So you see, yeah, on the left side, I have kind of overview. So like all the high level topics that I'll be covering during this session. So as you guys have already heard, like, or you might have already aware that Viva and Salesforce are separating, right? So previously, Salesforce are not supposed to build a competitive product for Viva. So that uh, legal requirements went out, I think, a couple of years back, and then Salesforce started investing in Agentforce Life Sciences Cloud, which is um, short term for that is LSC. So during my presentation, anytime I talk about LSC, that is nothing but the Life Sciences Cloud, basically. So it is specifically for industries. So industry focusing on pharma industry or the life science industries. And it has four different pieces to it. So we have the clinical engagement, we have the medical engagement, and the commercial domains. So it has a specific data model for each one of those. So I'll talk a lot about those during this session. And I'll try to relate to like what each of those specific functionality mean from an end user point of view as well. So a brief about clinical engagement. So it basically maintains the data about adverse events and the participant management for a clinical trials. So there are some legal requirements because life science is always a highly regulated industry. And in these, there are a lot of research and development ongoing time to time, right? Like during COVID, we were looking for a vaccination, let's say, right? And for that, there were a lot of clinical engagement, basically, right? There were multiple trial and error to uh, get the final product, right? So we had different stages that are maintained through our license cloud for those purposes. It's not only for a specific disease or things like that. It can be of new nutrients or supplements and so on. So it can be anything that is given to a human is going through a clinical engagement trial. Once, let's say that medicine is ready for consumption, right? So you need to inform the doctors about it, right? Because there are a lot of different companies within this industry, right? And everyone is coming up with new medicines every day. Um, so as part of that, right? So you need to inform your doctors around those medicines. And that's where the customer engagement piece comes in, right? So you might have visited a doctor where there will be some medical representative who are visiting those doctors, right? So if you have seen that kind of engagement, then yeah, basically it is part of some company who is trying to promote their medicines to the doctors as well, right? And once doctor prescribe those medicines to a patient, right, and that's where the patient engagement comes in, right? So every day we do not generally interact with, let's say, digital platform on our medicines, but there are medicines where you need a care program, for example, right? So maybe someone, you cannot take that yourself, someone else needs to help you to inject it in your body or put it in your medicine and so on. So in that sense, we have a separate data model for patient engagement. And there is also a mid-tech commercial, like you might have seen some X-ray machines, some high, high-based equipment in the labs as well as in the hospitals, right? So there are many companies who build those kind of medical devices, and for those, they also need to visit, right? And they need to maintain a relationship with the customers or those hospitals, and those are maintained in mid-tech commercial data model, basically. Any questions on these four broad categories so far? Uh,
I have only one question for clinical engagement. Like whenever something is getting under this, like say some new medicine is coming out, so there are different phases of trial, right? So
mhm,
phase one, phase two, phase three, phase four, phase five. Some of the times phase six as well.
Correct.
So is there any way to getting that data into this in this part, and finally whenever it is getting approved depending on those results, those are also coming into this system?
Yes, and also it is like Salesforce is mostly on the adverse event module. So I'll quickly show you that as well. Just a second, I should have
You
it
can
here.
continue your flow. I had just
Yeah,
asked
yeah.
this.
No, no, that's a good. No, it's good. I want to keep it interactive as well, right? So you see, Salesforce, there are two or three different things that we can do with the clinical engagement. So we can manage the adverse events where something goes wrong, right? So let's say you give some medicine to someone and something has gone wrong. So Salesforce provides this adverse events model where you can say like, okay, something has
Actually
gone wrong
comes
for this.
after, I believe, sorry to cut you off, Amit. I believe that comes after the
After the,
I have
correct,
able to prescribe that. But before that, there is specific scenarios where a group of people will be getting that medicine and a group of people will be getting the placebo. So depending upon that, it will be coming up the efficacy of that medicine, right? Like say
correct, correct.
rabies vaccine. It is saying that the pre-exposure it is around 65-70% of efficacy. Post-exposure it is something like the efficacy is quite weak, rather to say
Correct.
40-45%, something like that. So for that, they have just tried with those group of people, and that actually that result is somewhere needs to be captured. So is there any
Yeah, yeah.
model
So
here or
there is a
not?
participant management. There is a participant. I'm still sharing my screen, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay. So you see the participant management, right? So whoever is participating in these programs, right? So they come under this, right? So there
Okay,
is a care program,
I
and
got your
inside the
point.
care,
I got your point.
so inside that care program, you'll have this research study candidates who is basically linked to a person account who are the participant basically.
Okay,
So we can model it around this basic in the system.
okay, okay. Got it. Got
Okay.
it.
But I'll come to this, all these different
Sure.
data models
Sure.
as well during the flow, basically.
Sure.
Any other questions on this topic? Okay, good. So I think it was a nice cue. Thanks, Amartya. So I wanted to discuss about all these different data models that Salesforce provide out of the box, right? But before I do that, I wanted to ask a question to the audience as well, right? To understand like why do you think Salesforce provides this kind of data model, right? Because it's quite easy for us to configure an object, right? We can configure all these objects by ourselves within a day, maybe. There are some smart features now with uploading an Excel, you can create an object as well, right? So why do you think Salesforce provides this kind of data models?
Standardization and process flow.
Yeah, that's exactly why they do it, right? Because they have gone through these iterative processes through different companies, right? So they give a baseline data model to all of us so that we can customize and configure more on top of it if required, right? But if they do not do it, then it lives with the SIs and the vendors basically who might mess it up because we work with different industries and so on, right? So Salesforce provides a baseline data model for all of us, which comes in as and when we start configuring those uh, data models within the system. So with this, I'll start with the clinical engagement data model. I think my flow it was first the clinical as well. Good. So the clinical engagement data model, as I briefly mentioned, right? So it gives you two or three different things. So first one is the adverse event where something goes wrong or unintended signs. As soon as that appears, you need to treat them properly, right? Otherwise, your entire study can be jeopardized, right? So those are managed by the adverse event, and whoever is participating on those studies are managed by the participant management. So it will help us to recruit and enrollment process of the clinical trials. I have not heard a lot of those within India, but in Europe and the US, they are predominantly using this participant management for any of the clinical trials. And there are a lot of rules and regulations around it as well, because they need to know in depth about the participants, because if it is for a human trial, they need to make sure like any adverse event that happens to those participants are treated within this clinical study as well. And then there are also site management. So there are different suitable sites for conducting these research studies. So they manage all the different sites based on different search filters. This model was quite different in the viewer world, basically. I remember there was totally a separate data model around it in viewer world. So by saying that, I'll quickly run you through some important objects and entities. I have it in my flow as well. So I have captured few of these standard objects at a glance so that we know like what exactly we do there in each of those.
Amit, sorry to cut you off. Is there any way to increase the font size or overall
Yes, I can. I can.
small? Yeah,
I have a last screen,
yeah, yeah,
so I
yeah.
can
It's good.
just leave
It's
it.
good now. At
It's
least I can
good.
read it now. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Also try to increase the font size of this as well. Yeah. Okay. I think it's a bit better comparatively.
Right.
Okay, so I have included some of the core standard objects basically, which will be, and you can also get them in these as well, right? So if you just go to clinical engagement, you'll find the adverse events, the participant management, and basically I took them from here to our diagram as well. So let's start a bit on the adverse events. So if you see adverse events is the central piece of this, and all the related factors are tertiary to the central piece, right? So, and these are all part of a larger data model, right? So you see there is a code set and you will see a similar code set in participant as well. And these are the exact same objects. Some nomenclature about these, right? So anything that is marked in purple are part of Life Science Cloud object, and if they are marked in gray, that is a standard Salesforce object. So if I go back to our adverse event, you will see everything is coming from uh, the Life Science Cloud, apart from this research study, which is kind of an external object, if I read this correctly. And then we have the account, of course, the standard Salesforce accounts, which links to this adverse entry effect. So sometimes you will also see an arrow which groups together a broader category. In this case, these are all the subjects. And then we have a location for that adverse entry, because the same medicine can have a different location. So you need to know which it can be because of the environment as well, right? So, and then also the event code, like, is it very severe? So you can categorize in different groups, these codes and codes and bundles, and they're all linked back to your adverse events. And then, of course, it should be recorded by someone who is conducting those research studies, right? So those are grouped by or recorded by a specific care program employee, as well as an account, which, let's say, the hospital or the research institute who is conducting this study, basically, right? So that's where, let's say, the actor part of an adverse entry. And then there are different actions or tertiary things that can happen after that adverse event is happening. Like, we need to identify what are the contributing factors. Like, it can be different things. Like, if we take some example, like there will be some code sets, and there will be some health conditions and care observations as well, right? Like, maybe the patient had a bad immunity, or it can have a bad medication, and so on. And then you also need to see or validate, like, the different health condition that they're going through, if they have any kind of a medical device with the patients, and so on. So all of those are coming as part of the contributor factor reference, and as a junction object, we have that adverse event contributing factor, which links goes back to our adverse event. And then we have this adverse event supporting info and adverse event action as well. So the action can be almost similar to what we had for the contributing factor, because you will always have an effect. It's cause and effect, right? So that adverse event is the caused by something, right? And there will be a list of effects, like he might have some allergic reaction, he might have some intolerance, and so on. So all of those will be captured as part of our adverse event action as well as adverse event contributing factor. And we also have a party, like it is happening to like let's take an example of a person. Like, so I went there, so I was part of the study, I have an adverse event, so I was an enrollee, so I was also coming from a company as well, right? And there will be a contact, so which is also still me, right? And I was recommended by some healthcare practitioner facility, maybe, right? So maybe some doctor told I should be part of this study, and then I can also have a device as well. So meaning I can have a let's say pacemaker in my heart, and I'm taking some medicine so that my pacemaker works better. So a doctor, let's say, recommends me to part of the study so that my pacemaker works better for my age, for example, right? So all of those data are captured as part of party context, and then I have them as part of my adverse events party. And then we have that adverse event cause. Like there will be a list of cause references, which is the final outcome of this adverse event entry. These are the final cause, like, okay, I got this adverse event because my heart rate went up in this hypothetical example, let's say. So they will find why exactly it happened, right? It could be because of the medication or because of certain immunity condition that I have, and so on. And then the resulting effect, like if I have any kind of health condition, in this case, let's say my heartbeat went up, so that is my health condition, and what kind of care observations that they come up with, right? Like maybe I cannot run after the study for 3 days, right? So those are the care observations that they will capture in. And they will also have this adverse event outcome. So they will link it to the code set and the code set bundle. So there will be different categories of those code. And if certain codes are not met, then the product will not move to the next state, and so on. So that's what is maintained around adverse events. Yeah, please go ahead if there are any questions
I have
on
only
this
one
topic.
question. Like whenever we are seeing any adverse event, there are three different parts. First thing is that there should be a template, like whoever my study group is, depending on whatever scenarios, how their parameters will be measured and when that will be measured, that periodic timing and all these things, right? So
Those
that
are part of the participant management.
okay, that's what
But
I was trying to understand. Okay, I got your point. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
so that will be managed by the participant management, like how they will conduct those, what kind of, so they will have a template. So there will be a care
Template
plan
for that, and
template.
then there should
And
be
then if
another
something
part.
goes wrong,
Mhm.
as soon as something goes wrong, they will log an adverse event.
Adverse event.
And as soon as there is an adverse event, and then it can be because of placebo as well, right? So it can be a false alarm, and someone just said like, okay, I'm feeling sick because I was trying to feel it, let's say. So
Yeah.
then they will just disregard it, but they will always link it to this code set. So that code set will determine like, okay, if it is a very severe issue or if it is not, and so on.
So what is code set? Like, is it
It's kind
something
of a
like
standard. So
standards? Yes, that's what I was just trying to understand. Okay, got it, got it.
okay. So then, yeah. we'll also have participant management, which is a beast in itself, to be honest. I will not go through each and every object, let's say, but I'll just touch upon the high level, top level objects, which we'll always use basically. And all of this, you will have a standard data models library as well. So I will quickly show you that before I move on to this. So each of these objects, right, are part of let's explore associated objects. No. So here you will find each of these objects that I mentioned, right, is part of this standard data sets. Okay, so all these objects, what they're representing is given here, right? So if you want to read more about a certain entities, what kind of fields are there and so on, so you can always go one step down and understand why exactly they're used. Like for this context, like code set, as I said, right, like industry defined codes or context, uh, which can be used to sort the digital records basically. And these are like basically the standards. So for each one of them, you find a really well documented list of objects and what the purpose of those objects are, as well as what kind of fields they are in each of those objects as well. And of course, like as they are all standard Salesforce object, you can always add more fields based on our customer needs and so on. Okay, going back to our participant data model. I think I moved a couple of. I think here I spoke briefly about the CREA program as well. So the CREA program is basically how for a specific research study, participant needs to be monitored, like every 3 hours, every 8 hours. There will be a schedule as well, and those are all maintained as part of the CARE program. And as soon as someone starts participating in those CARE program, is part of a CARE program team member. Okay, and then yeah, they're also part of a person account. So person accounts are basically the participants, and then they are part of the research study candidates, and the research study is part of the research study candidates will be part of a research study basically. And then in health cloud, always consent is really important. So you cannot force someone to do anything, right? So you need to always take the consent from them. And there are, depending on what kind of research study they're part of, there can be different kind of a consent. Some cases, the participant knows the risk because these are all, let's say, untested or unmarketed products. So many of the cases, the adverse events are not known when they're participating, right? So there is a associated risk. So they inform them about those risks, and as soon as they provide their consent, they are part of the digital verification, and they have to sign this. So that signing process is kept under digital signature. So this model is really important for any regulated industries like life science. So you might have to have a total audit history, like who signed at what point of time, what document they have signed, and what they've agreed, what they've not agreed, and so on. Right. So all of these are maintained as part of this informed consent module. And then there are some eligibility criteria as well, like some participants may not be eligible for a certain stage of the product. Let's say someone is really old, may not be eligible for the early stage of certain medications, because just because they're old, they're not, their body may not be able to cope up and so on, right? So there are some eligibility criteria that are maintained as part of each care program, even though you can be part of the research study candidate, but because of your eligibility, you lose this you cannot participate basically for a certain stage on a research study. So that's more or less about participant management. Of course, there are some other entities as well, which is good to know, but I don't think for the exam point of view, I did not see them anywhere. So I'll not go in depth for each of those objects, otherwise we'll not be able to manage everything in this.
Right. Yes.
Moving to site management. So here as well, site management is basically a healthcare facility like a hospital or a research institute where someone goes to take those medicines, and then they monitor you during that entire care program. And then, yeah, they maintain all of this as part of this data model. It looks overwhelming, but again, like we have some standard entities there, like accounts. Accounts represents a lot, basically. It can be the participant, it can be the hospitals, it can be the contracts as well. So the contracts are uh, part of the nurse, or it can be the doctors and so on. And those are maintained via the account contact relation. Even though it is marked as uh, red, but in standard Salesforce data model as well, we have the same object or same entity account contact relation. And then we have the location. Location is basically the physical location or the address. And then you have a business hours linked to it, which represents at what point of time they'll be opened and at what point of time they'll be closed. So they're all linked to our site. Uh, and then you, on the left side, you see the healthcare provider. Basically, they're conducting this research. So they provide, let's say, the functionality, or let's say, they're doing the trial for the specific medicine or that equipment. And this healthcare provider is basically the parent for most of the things. So you will see a lot of child records linked to it, like the team members, the party publications. And then if they're part of, let's say, in my hypothetical example, it was a heart um, medicine, right? So they will be part of, let's say, the heart care, or that taxonomy will be the parent of this. And they can also be specialized in different other groups as well. Like, for example, if they're doing some research on cancer and so on, so then can be part of oncology and so on. So this healthcare provider will have those taxonomy, like, okay, they are specialized in so and so things. And on the right side, we have the care program site, where actually on that specific day, a certain research study is ongoing. So then they are part of that research program or care program site. And then there are some unit of measure. I did not see it on the exam, so I'll not discuss more about it. And then there are some research study and the care program. So the care program is what I explained in participant management, right? So basically, where you will have a specific plan of actions, like, okay, we'll provide you this medicine before food. This is kind of a template, basically, right? So we create those templates based on the research study guides, and then uh, it is linked to our care program site, and then it was given to a certain participant on a certain day. All the checklists that are needs to be maintained as part of that is maintained in our document checklist items. And then there will be a lot of assessments as well as site contract, which is also somehow linked to your consent management as well. So that's basically high level manages this site management. So I covered a lot in last few minutes. So I'll try to quickly brief on our uh, on a short, like what exactly we have covered so far. So the adverse event manages the documents or unintended signs and symptoms. The participant management streamlines the recruitment and enrollment in the clinical trials. and they're always linked to this FHAR R4 align. So these are all standards set by US government and for any clinical study. So if we have to trial certain medicines on humans, so you need to follow certain guidelines. So this participant management is following those guidelines. So if anything goes wrong, if government wants to audit the system and so on, so they will go through this list of checks and make sure you can find anything that went wrong with a proper audit and so on. And then the site management identifies the suitable sites for research studies, and it uses the criteria-based search and filters. So I saw some questions around this, so it's good to know more or study a bit more around this. And it supports scoring and tagging of sites and investigators in the site management module. So that covers anything that goes around clinical engagement data model. So I spoke already for 45 minutes, so maybe you can take a small 5 minute break. And if someone wants to chat for any other topic, we can discuss for 5 minutes on that.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll connect back in exactly 5 minutes from now. Yeah. I hope people are back.
Yeah, you should.
Okay, let's start. So the next part that I want to cover is the the customer part, basically, the customer engagement. So customer engagement has a lot of different data models around it. So I'll take only the key part, which I think are really important from the exam point of view, and I'll briefly run through the entire list, and then we can discuss a bit more on like which are the key important things for the exam point of view. So yeah, the customer are basically for a uh, so compared to any Salesforce products, other Salesforce products, let's say, so it's very difficult to maintain or let's say have a good metrics on what exactly your successful uh, customer management looks like in Life Science Cloud, because you don't want basically people to fall sick, right? So you cannot force some doctors to prescribe your medicines, right? But you can just engage with them and just educate them so that they recommend your product or recommend your medicines to the patients, right? So there is no direct influence on your interactions on the doctors to provide your medicine, right? So you cannot really do it for any other unregulated industries where you push someone and create a relationship to push your product to them, basically, right? So it needs a lot of planning and so on to build the relationship with the doctors and the ACOs to make sure you manage that expectation well. And it also includes like you have to go to the sites, visit them, you need to distribute some sample and so on, right? So all of those are maintained around the clinical engagement, customer clinical engagement. So the big piece of it is comes under the account management. So accounts are basically the ACPs and ACOs. You will hear a lot about them whenever you are working in any license project. The ACPs are basically healthcare professionals and ACOs are basically healthcare organization. So the way I always understand it is like ACOs are nothing but the hospitals, ACPs are nothing but the doctors or the nurse, right? So as there are nuances, and that's why they're called health ACOs and ACPs, because in our example, it can be a research institute, which is the ACO, and the ACPs can be the person or the technician who is providing you the injection and so on, or giving you the medicines and so on. So that's why just to let's categorize them in a broader category, they're called always an ACP and ACOs in Salesforce or any license cloud projects. And there are a lot of different details that needs to be maintained for ACP and ACOs, like their social network details, their specialties, affiliations, and business licenses, the ratings and the territory alignment and the product name details. All these are important, right? Because if a doctor says your medicine works, and there are a lot of people who follows those doctors as well, and then of course your medicine gets a better review and vice versa, right? If someone says a bad thing about your medicines or your product, then you get a negative publicity, which can cause a lot of different trouble for you as well. And that's why it is important to know like what kind of affiliations they have, like if they are present in social media, what kind of specialties that they have. Like if you go to a dermatologist and give them a sample for your heart medicine that you have built or created, so it does not make sense, right? So you need to know what kind of specialties that they have. You also need to know the affiliations. So it's good to know like affiliations are more like a doctor can be linked to different hospitals. Like if they're really a good doctor, let's say in our case, like if many of the government hospital doctors are also associated with different private institute or private hospitals as well, right? So all of those are maintained by affiliations. So you have a primary association to a certain hospital and ACO, and then you might have a number of other hospitals where you are part of your visiting members or visiting faculty. You can be part of the board members. You can be a decision maker and so on. So all of those are maintained by the affiliations. And then you also have the business licenses are named by the registrations, like doctors can be, uh, you will see a lot of degrees that they have, right? And they might have also registration numbers, which allows them to practice medicine in different countries even. So in Europe, it is quite prominent because they have smaller countries and every country has their specific set of rules and qualifications which they need to pass for practicing medicine. And US, I don't think they have a global standard as far as I remember, but there as well, like they need to pass certain exams to practice certain domain of medicine. Let's say like you need to have a specialty in oncology and as well as keep yourself up to date on those. So they have every 2 or 3 years exam which they need to pass and maintain those exams to practice on that. Uh, anyways. And there is a concept of territorial alignment. I'm not sure how many of you have worked on it, but again, it's a major piece of the exam as well. So just get well versed with territory management. I'll also cover it as part of the data model discussion and in the subsequent sections as well. Um, One thing is also important. I think there will be at least one question in the exam around data change request. So any information around the doctors are well regulated. So you cannot just go. It's not like in normal Salesforce, we just go and update accounts without any validation. But it cannot be done in a regulated industry like Health Cloud, because it needs to be validated by some external partners and this information needs to be maintained well. So those are all done by the data change request. So you have to create a data change request against an ACP or an ACO. It needs to be validated by someone, and then only after that, that change will be reflecting on your ACP and ACO. And there is also merge management, like you over time might create duplicate records. It could have happened because of someone created it or as part of data migration and so on. So there is a merge management which consolidates the duplicate ACPs and ACOs. And sometimes it can also happen because of merger and acquisition as well, like a bigger hospital taking over a smaller hospital, or multiple facilities are getting grouped together, and then you have to take help of your merge management to make sure you maintain the same hierarchy within your Salesforce instance as well, so that once you reach out to your ACPs, you can also keep that in context. And then comes the territory management. It's a big piece of our journey in Health Cloud. So the territories are basically a hypothetical group. So there is no, let's say, physical relevance to it, but this inter-industry basically divides a geographical location into different region, right? Let's say Northeast could be a territory depending on like how big that company is, right? So there are multiple levels as well. Like in Northeast, uh, there could be multiple states, for example. West Bengal could be a state, and within West Bengal as well, there could be a subdivision of, let's say, Kolkata region or Asansol region and so on. So all of those are part of our territory, right? And sometimes, depending on the engagement, they uh, divide these or regroup them into different categories, right? So let's say if it's a new company, so initially I have seen only 2 or 3 levels of territory, but if it is growing more, it can go up to 4 or 5 in the extreme cases. But again, this territory management is basically assigned to someone. So I'll go now to the data model so that I can explain better. So the territories are um, categorized into territory 2 standard objects. So these are also part of standard Salesforce. So we don't have to create a new one. And for each of this territory, there is a provided territory information which is links back to an account. So one account can be part of multiple territories, and one territory can have multiple accounts. So in this case, the account represents an SCO, not necessarily an ACP. So the SCO is nothing but the hospitals basically. So one hospital can be part of multiple territory, and same territory can include multiple accounts in this data model. And you can have different rules. In territory geo assignment rule is where you define like for which account, what kind of rule I need to set up to set up a certain territory assignments. I will also go a level deep on this territory assignment rule in my next session. So I'm not going to the configuration piece of it. I'm just explaining the data model to explain what actually it means. And then it all starts with a care specialty. So care specialties, let's say hematology or oncology and so on. So those are all kind of a group you define, and then you say like, okay, on this territory assignment rule, if there is at least one doctor on a certain hospital, then I want to assign them to a specific territory. And then these accounts which has oncology as a specialty comes under this territory provider affiliation assignment rule and gets assigned to a specific territory and so on. So all of these are configured via something called as admin console. So in your exam, you will see a lot of questions around admin console. So I'll also cover admin console a bit more detail in my next session so that you have a good context around how it is maintained in the system itself. I'll see if I can also arrange a playground environment. So that's one of the PT of Agentforce Life, since at this point you cannot get a developer org, let's say, configured at this point. I hope Salesforce changes it in some time, and then every one of us can play around and see what actually it means by playing in the system rather than talking in a data model slide, which is very difficult to consume, let's say, as an information. And I'll quickly run through the account management objects as well. So one key fundamental difference between Viva world of things versus Salesforce world is everything that was provided in Viva were managed around account, but Salesforce introduced an object called as healthcare provider, and as part of License Cloud. So I did not see any exact same object in Viva world. These are all managed on the account in the Viva world. So healthcare provider basically opens a few things for us, right? Because you get to have a healthcare provider specialty. So one doctor can be specialized in multiple things, like someone can be specialized in dermatology as well as immunology because he has knowledge around allergic reactions and so on. So one doctor can have multiple specialties, and they can also have different business licenses, like they can practice in US as well as EMEA, as well as in India, for example. So all of those are maintained under business licenses. They can also provide different party publications, like they can write in some journals and so on. So those are maintained in party publications basically. Here as well, like there are some standard objects like territory 2, object territory associations, and user territory associations. And in other industries, I have not seen it that much, but in life sciences world, territory changes a lot. So one hospital moves from one territory to another territory based on that specific company's policies. So there is always a lot of realignment required for those activities, basically. And those real alignments are mostly done via some bad jobs. So Salesforce also provides a list of bad jobs that helps you to align those territory after a reshuffle, basically. So I'll also discuss a bit more on those specific jobs in my next session, so that you can understand like how they're configured, what kind of capability it provides, and so on. And as I mentioned before as well, like consent is really important in this world. So those are all maintained via this consent objects. And there is also a separate model for inter-consent. So there are contact point addresses which represent basically where those doctors are sitting or located, basically. And then they might have different phone numbers for those locations. So those are maintained via contact point phones. And then based on the ACPs, you can have different contacts as well. Like there can be an assistant of the doctors, and there can be mm, like someone who is helping the doctor as a nurse and so on. So those are all maintained via the contact for that specific cases. And the contact point email is like the email of those accounts or the ACPs or the ACOs, depending on which contacts we're talking about. So those are all maintained under the contact point email. I think those are mostly the most important ones in this list. I think there were, from the exam point of view, you need to know well enough about healthcare provider, and I did not see any other things around this in the exam, to be honest. But it's good to know about the healthcare provider at least, and the data, of course, and the account data model in the system. Yeah, there and also the specialty for sure. So how the specialty is maintained within the system. And that's basically it. And affiliation is also an important topic because affiliations will control how an ACP is linked to different healthcare organizations. And in some cases, it can be a decision maker. Some cases, it can be um, just a faculty member and so on. Any questions on this model? I already spoke about data change requests, so good to know about it. I got, I think, at least one question on this one, if I still remember my exam, but this one was well covered in the exam as well. Then I'll quickly jump into the consent management. There will be at least few things coming from this, but most of them are standard Salesforce, so not specific entities related to License Cloud. As I said in the participant management as well, like you will have the digital signature for audit purposes. So anything that needs auditing, right? So you need to make sure you get it signed. It is applicable for all different things, like if it is required for your clinical trials or the participant management, as well as when you're distributing your samples as well. Like there are many cases where you provide certain samples to your doctors, and then the doctor needs to sign it that he received those samples from you. So those are all captured as part of the digital signature process. And in most of those cases as well, it's a mobile app. So if you want to relate it to your real life things, right? So once you configure all of these things, Salesforce will provide a mobile app to you. And that mobile app is in sync with your Salesforce instance. It is not the standard Salesforce mobile app that we get as part of the Salesforce, but it's a specialized mobile app. It has a lot of offline capabilities as well, because in many cases, because there are some limitations, like mobiles are always connected via a network, right? So in many hospitals or many clinical facility does not allow any, they have a jammer or they do not allow a mobile network to be available there. It could be for different reasons, because it can interfere with the radio frequencies that are available in that facility and so on. So it has to work offline basically, right? So that mobile app provides a lot of capabilities around those offline capabilities. And anytime, like it's a good anecdote to be honest, like anytime we change something in Salesforce cloud, right, in admin console, you need to refresh that cache, right, so that it reflects in the mobile app in the next sync, right? So that's how that mobile app works. And generally, these digital signatures are always captured on that mobile device. It could be a tab. In my experience, it is always an iPad or a tab, an Android tab, where they ask the doctor to sign it. They sometimes take the registration details of the doctor as well to make sure there is a digital audit maintained for any of the sample management as well as the participant management. And that's where they also capture some communication subscription, like can I send you more information about this medicine? Can I send you some more information about my device and so on? So all of those informations are also captured as part of this. And then there are also different channels, like you can send them emails, you can call them. Uh, uh, Calling part, I think in our country, in India, it's not maintained that well, to be honest. But in Life Science Cloud, it's well maintained. And for regulated industry, you cannot just call someone, pick up the phone and call them and tell them like, okay, our medicine is best, or do you need this medicine and so on, right? Um, and then also contact point address, like can I visit you on this hospital or should I always visit you on so and so address and so on. So some doctors have their preferences, like there are some facilities which are quite busy, so they don't like to visit the medical reps there. But in some other facility where they might have some dedicated slots for medical visit, because it's also for them to know about the latest and greatest on what is happening on the industry, right? And some doctors also allow, let's say, I can be contacted via social media, like you can ping me on Instagram, you can tag me on Instagram, and so on, right? So they give this that kind of consents as well for the doctors. So all of those are maintained via this model. And then all of this goes back to a licensed marketable product. So that's also an important thing to know, right? Because you need to have a product to start with all of this, right? So you have a product for which you say like, okay, you can send me communications, you can send me samples and so on. So it all starts with a life science marketable product, which links back to a standard product to objects here in this case. And then, yeah, they are all part of data use purpose as well. So I think I got questions around data use purpose, but to be honest, I don't think I answered it correctly in my exam. But yeah, I got one question around data use purpose, around product two and license marketable product. So it's good to read more about the data use purpose as well. Moving on, I think the next thing that I want to cover is the medical inquiries. So this is also good to know this data model in depth for both maintaining from the exam point of view as well as from the customer engagement point of view. So you always go back to, go to a doctor and tell like, okay, this in a hypothetical scenario, we are working on an heart medicine, right? So we give some sample, and the doctor might always have a question around it, right? So he might say, can I prescribe to a old patient, for example, right? So he might have an inquiry around it. Is there any kind of allergy that I need to be aware of before I prescribe to a real patient, right? So all of those are maintained via an inquiry, and it can be linked to different visit. So visit is basically a medical representative visiting a doctor. So those are maintained as part of the visit, and that inquiry needs to be addressed, right? So that addressing piece will be part of your subject assignment for that specific inquiry. And once that inquiry is fulfilled, you might have a legal requirement that, okay, that medical inquiry is fulfilled successfully. So you might want to capture a digital signature in your next visit that, okay, this was the question you asked, I answered it correctly. Can you please sign here so that you confirm that you have understood it correctly. And then there can be multiple questions as part of your inquiry as well. So those are all captured as part of your inquiry questions. And it can be also linked back to your marketable product that I explained in our consent module. And then it's, as I mentioned, can be also linked back to your product, real product objects that are available in Salesforce. And then you can give some answers as well. So those are all kept under inquiry question answer. I have not seen anywhere any project who is using this, but again, it could be. Salesforce provides a lot of standard objects, so when you go to a project, it does not necessarily mean we have to use all the objects that Salesforce provides out of the box, right? So we should try to stick to the standards. We should not create an object just because we do not know certain things, right? Mm, but again, at the same time, you don't have to extend it to its limit as well, because maybe for certain projects, certain things are not relevant. So you don't have to configure them, and through profiles and permission sets, you can control the access to the subjects. So Salesforce guideline is always clone a specific permission set and then customize it to your own needs, but leave the standard ones as is so that you can always refer back to what it was at the very beginning, basically. Then going to medical insights. Medical insights are also coming as part of the subject. So the subjects will provide the medical insights. I saw some concepts around medical insights as well in my training as well as in my exam questions. But yeah, it's good to read about it. I'll not go in depth, but you can expect something around medical insights and medical inquiries. I have quickly touched already on the mobile metadata and the mobile sync. So I'll not go through the data model. I don't think that's relevant, to be honest. But most of these things are controlled by the admin console. So it's good to know how to configure them. And anytime you change anything in your live Salesforce environment, you need to refresh the cache so that it can retrieve the metadata from your Salesforce org and push it to the cache so that next time a medical representative comes online, those changes are reflected in their mobile app. So it's really important to know that this is the process, how it happens. Even though like in our trialogue as well, which I got from my company, yeah, I do not have the mobile app configured there as well. But for sure, any life-size cloud so cannot work without that offline mobile app. So that is why it is kind of a must-have for the medical representatives while doing the visit. So the entire visit is managed around visit management. So as I said before as well, so as soon as a doctor goes to when a medical representative goes to a doctor, so it is captured as a visit. it is not always a physical visit, so it could be via video call as well. So there is a separate entity called video call entity where certain people can participate. So it's good to know that in a video call, like or in your current visit as well, you can have multiple participant. So you might want to have a participant from your own company as well. So those are all maintained as part of the participant of that visit. And then from the visit, you can have multiple medical insight because you could not have the information. So in the Viva world, we had Viva Promomat, where which provides specific information about your product, right? So those documents or those marketable products, right, can lead to certain questions. So in to the doctors, you cannot provide that information unless you are totally sure about it, right? So there are cases where you cannot give those answers on the spot. So in that case, you can create that inquiry record to just log that, okay, this is a question that was asked to me, but I could not answer it at that point of time. But you create an inquiry record and then you can answer it in your next visit, or you can share the details via digital medium like an email and so on. But it is really, really important that whatever information is given to the doctors are the correct ones, right? Because the based on that information, doctor will provide or write it down in in his prescriptions. And then if that information is not correct, it can have an adverse event. Okay, and the visit can also be linked to expenses, right? So you have to commute to that place, and you might have to invite them uh, uh, to some certain kind of promotions as well, and then so on. So those are all captured in the expense report. Sometimes these medical representatives also give them uh, certain bonuses. Let's say like if you in next quarter you can provide them certain tips. So those are all come under the expense management basically. Uh, then in the visit, if you provide certain products to them, so those are coming as part of product disbursement, meaning you have a list of inventory. I will cover the inventory management as well. So when I talk about the sample management, but again, quickly touching upon that product disbursement. So from your inventory, you provide certain samples to your uh, doctors. So you manage them as part of your product disbursement. Like I gave only 5 tablets to this doctor on so and so visit. So those are captured as part of your product disbursement. And those are the most important ones in this data model. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead. If not, I will move forward. I want to discuss about the sample management as well. So, as you have seen, or I already discussed a brief about product disbursement in our visit management. So this is also important to know like how this entire sample management is working, and it's also covered in the exam as well as in the training, and it's really important to know as well. So these are all around 3 or 4 different things. So we have the product, and the products are also linked to marketable product as well. And then you have a list of product disbursement, which is like how many of them has been provided to a specific doctor on a certain date. There is also a production batch because when a certain medicine is in its trial phase or in its sampling space, right? So you need to know from which batch that product is coming from. And then you also have that inventory operation, which links back to your product disbursement. And each visit can have a different inventory operation, which can link back to your location as well. So the location can represent different things. It could be from where a medicine is coming from, and at the same time, it could be where you are providing or having the visit, uh, and so on. But the sample management is basically providing certain samples to your doctors. So all of those data needs to be traced back, because if any kind of adverse event is happening, then this sample could be traced back. And finally, end of the day, you need to know from which batch this medicine is coming from, and there can be a callback request for that entire batch in those scenarios. So traceability is really, really important while doing the sample management in the system. Okay, and then we also have surveys. Survey basically captures the feedback about the visit. It could be about anything. Uh, so you will, it could be about a visit, it could be about a medicine, it could be about uh, a subject. So all of those are part of subjects basically. So it could be on a case, like how well you have responded to your case. It could be about a certain product, or it could be of any custom objects as well. So, and then for each of the subject, you provide them a survey subject, and then you have a survey invitation, send it to your participants. So the participant could be anyone as well, like it could be an user, it could be a contact and a lead. So the contacts are basically the ACPs whom you are sending the survey to, and they can respond to your survey basically. A survey can have a lot of questions. So it can be like, okay, we all have been part of service by now, right? Like after any interaction we have with any of the companies, we we get asked some questions. So those questions are part of the survey questions, and then you might have some certain score based on those survey answers or responses, and there can be different version of those surveys as well. So those are captured as part of the survey versions. Um, that's more or less about survey as well. But for sure, there will be at least one question in your exam around survey as well. If, uh, so that's all I want to cover for this part. I We can take a small break for 5 minutes again, and then we go through the final stretch of today's session. So we'll connect back at 10:35.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, guys. See you in 5 minutes again. Okay, let's start. Some is again. Okay. This will be the final section for today. We already spoke about clinical engagement and the customer engagement so far. So whatever we have seen is from when a medicine is conceptualized till it is prescribed by a doctor, right? So we have done that, but we will look at other way around now. Let's say like how the patients are engaging with us basically for a licensed company. So patients can be a participant of a certain clinical study. Patients could be someone who have a medicine prescribed to them and so on. So those are all comes under patient engagement data model. So how we are supporting patients? So they have to enroll. So how all of those data is maintained in a care program and how their therapy scheduling is maintained are all supported by the patient engagement data model. Okay, so these are all like outcome driven. So meaning the process should be always compliant to the local regulations, and all the information needs to be captured in a digital format so that at any point of time that can be audited back and so on. So in this, I think there is only one data model that is really good to look at. I think I'll quickly go to that data model, patient engagement. It's this one, yes. So we have this advanced therapy management. This is where is the most relevant one, I think, in terms of patient engagement to look at. So this one is a multi-step scheduling basically. So you will see two different set of objects here again. So you will see there is health cloud objects. I think I'll zoom in a bit just so that you guys can see as well. So in this data model, it's not only the health cloud objects, but also the scheduler object. So scheduler object is a separate product from Salesforce, which helps in scheduling things. So I don't know why Salesforce chose those two colors. They look almost similar, so it is quite easy to miss. But anything that is light pink in color are health cloud objects. Anything that is deep pink in color are basically a scheduler object. So it has nothing to do with LifeSense Cloud. These are all kind of a separate product which Salesforce is borrowing for the specific health cloud projects or product basically to manage the data model. So here I think it's good to know like how they're all managed, right, and why this is required in the first place, right? So in our hypothetical scenario, we are developing a heart medicine basically, right? But that medicine maybe needs to be administered at different interval of time, right? So they cannot provide you the medicine, so you need to visit to different facilities to get that medicine basically. For example, so in those cases, you will have a schedule, like you have to go every week or every day, or you have to live there for 7 days and so on. So all of those are managed via this data model. And that's why you have a service resource. So service resource is basically who is providing or medicating you, and they will have different shift, right? So they may not work for 24/7, right? But you might need this medicine every 4 hours. So someone needs to be available for you for your case, right? And that's where there are operating hours. So all these are all your scheduler entities, not related to health cloud basically, but they come from like a complex model. Like people can be on holidays, there can be operating hours holiday, and all of those entities are coming from your scheduler product basically. And then where it gets linked is via the work type. So work type will have a relationship with our health cloud data model as well as our scheduler data model. And there you will have the work procedure step is where it is linked back to your program. So the care program is kind of an umbrella that says, okay, this is how the plan looks like. And then you will have the work procedure, which will subdivide it into different categories like provide medicine every 4 hours. There can be multiple medicines as well. So those are all captured in your work procedure. And then you have the step. This is the final leg, how it will be administered to the patients, basically. Okay, and then there will be these work types, as I mentioned, like it's also coming from the scheduler. Uh, I've not seen any implementation so far anywhere, either in the Viva world or in the Salesforce world, who manages this complex data model, but I'm sure there are some highly regulated customers who might need them. If I read through the documentation as well, I saw like, yeah, it is mostly for cell and gene therapy kind of companies who conduct those. So maybe for them it was required, and they have this data model available in their disposal to help them manage them. And for a patient point of view, they will get an appointment. So those are all service appointments, and that service appointment will determine like, okay, at what point of time you need to visit, and so on. And that will look just like this meeting invite on a calendar, where you have to visit on a certain date on a certain time uh, for your appointment, basically, to your doctor. So that's about the patient engagement. Here as well, I'll quickly touch on the electronic signatures. So this is again used by digital verification mechanism as well. So every time you visit, you might have to provide a electronic signature, and they can also ask for your identity card and so on. Those can be captured as part of your electronic signatures as well. I will not touch the health insurance. Those are not really required at this point. Um, I don't think we have any other interesting data model to go through on this part as well. So that is more on the patient engagement module. I'll quickly go through my notes as well. And by the way, I'll share this document. It has some good tips as well. Maybe next week I'll refine it a bit more and then share it with you guys so that you can also refer it. But be careful, it has a lot of AI involved in it while preparing this document. So always refer to the original document and cross-check all the information that are given here. That's my recommendation will be. And then moving to objects recurring, I'm just going through quickly. Yeah, I already touched on the electronic signature, but it's also, it's good to know, like, you will require a therapy orchestration permission set license plus permission set, and it is available only after API version 60 onwards. Yeah, I did not touch on the financial help as well. So there is some objects around financial assistance program. I'll quickly brief on all these different subsidiary modules, let's say. So they might need some financial aid to participate on that. So in that case, you just manage those data by the financial assistance program. It can be certain medicines can be covered by your health insurance provider as well. So those are managed by a health insurance data model as well. Okay, so these are all like subsidiary things. So I'm not really going through in depth each one of them. And moving to the regulations. So this is also one of the important piece for Health Cloud. So it supports FHIR R4 and HL7. Both of them are, I think, US standard. So Salesforce adheres to those data model standards in License Cloud. Um, and again, like these are all legal stuff, so we don't have to go in depth about it, but at least we should know like what are the data model supports regulations basically, and it also helps us to um, maintain the electronic health records, as they call it, in the system as well. So what can happen is like a certain patient or certain doctors can move from one pharmaceutical company to another pharmaceutical company, and the other company might request that, okay, I want to know everything about this patient. So it's also relevant in Europe as well. Like we do not have our own health information with us. It is always living with the doctor. So if we move places, our doctors change, and then they request it from the other doctors. What are the health information for those doctors? In India, we have to maintain some kind of a history of medical history of ourselves. Like we maintain the prescriptions of the previous doctors. We always carry it with us, basically, while visiting the next doctor, so that he knows what the previous doctor thought about us and so on. Right. So those are kind of an offline way of managing all of those data. But in Salesforce world, or if we manage that kind of information via our health cloud implementation, then yeah, Salesforce supports EHR data model, and it comes with a bunch of objects around it. And not all of them are required to be fulfilled, let's say, but it's good to know, like, okay, these are the things uh, that are supported as part of the standard platform. So some of them, I think you guys are already aware, like a human name, this person name, identifier, medications, what kind of medicines I'm having, what kind of organizations I'm linked to, the patient data, and so on. What are the healthcare provider is called the practitioner. So the left side one indicates like if it's a resource, and the right side one are the Salesforce objects, which represents that FHA resources basically. Um, and then we also have the considerations, like you will always need a middleware in between to convert the standard Salesforce data model to FHR compliant data. So if you want to expose your data to your external systems. Salesforce also provides a composite API. These are also standard Salesforce feature, not related to Health Cloud specifically, but composite API supports to group multiple objects together, and you can configure your own composite request, and you can request for enter objects like, okay, I want all the patients for that specific doctor, and I want to know the contact details and so on. So you can group your composite request in that way, and then that will be fed back to the middleware, which can map our Salesforce data to EHR data, and then that data will be shared back or shared to the any other applications who is requesting for it. But again, it needs customization. It's not like everything is out of the box, but it's good to know that Salesforce supports this data model, and we can configure them the way we want it to be. And then, yeah, there is also an HL7 message compatibility as well. So these are all the regulation data. These are all the LSC feature. I'll let you guys go through it. So I'll not go through each one of them in depth. And there will be some questions around it, I think. Um, So it's good to know, but I have in at least in my exams, what I gave, I got one or two questions around only the regulations name, but nothing more than that. So it's good to know like what are the different regulations it supports, and that should be it. Not go in depth like how we can map, for example, activity timing to timing standard data model. That depth is not required, at least from the exam point of view. Okay. Then Um, yeah. Then we have the final thing for today's topic is the provider engagement compliance. So there, uh, the compliance is around the sample eligibility and the limits and allocation. So Salesforce provides some predefined templates for different account segments, which limits how much sample can be provided to a specific location. It can be done in different groups, like you can do it based on the affiliations, you can do it based on account segments, you can do it based on territories. It can be configured whatever way you want it to be. You can also give some limits, like per visit you can give only 5 samples. You can have like for a specific territory at max I can give only 50 samples and so on. So there are a lot of different configurations possible around sample limits and allocations. And as soon as we provide the sample, we distribute the samples. I think I spoke enough about digital signatures. So you need to capture those digital signatures. And there are also product restrictions as well. Like you cannot provide a certain medicine to a certain set of doctors. So you can have a product restrictions. So it has to be always on the medical uh, marketable products. So you can create a product restrictions that okay, I can provide only those to your to the doctors for certain things. And then you have the sample eligibility as well. Like it is not eligible for every product is not eligible for all doctors. So you can also have a sample eligibility products and so on. So that's all I want to cover today. So I'll give a brief about what and all we covered from the exam point of view. I'll go back to our exam schedule, the exam outline. So yeah, it's a bit tricky, like because all the things that I covered right so far is crossing across all the 4 domains. So if I go back to my uh, yeah, so in terms of exam coverage, right, the customer clinical engagement is covered in all the 4 domains. So it is really important to learn more about it, if I can say that. And then there is a trailhead module as well. So I hope like yeah everyone knows about it already. Or if not, I'll just paste it over the chat so that you guys can also go through this trailhead module. It's really um, good read, and you'll also get some badges in the process as well. So that's a nice to have. And it also provides the link. I think most of these links links back to this document. So I will provide you this dev guide as well. And in our next session, we will go over the admin module or the configuration module of License Cloud. I will try to get access to Trialog. I'm not promising anything because it is only provided by my company, and yeah, I cannot share the details of that, to be honest. So I'll see if I can arrange one. But again, like in partner learning camp, you also get to register for your own Trialog. So if you have access to your partner community, you can also try to request one. And then you have to follow the steps that I'll explain in our next session as well.
Sure.
So that's it for today. I don't know if anyone has any questions or we finish 5 minutes early.
Nothing from my side. And thanks a lot, Amit, for the time and for explaining all these things.
No problem at all. If there are any specific ask,
Yeah, Nargis is having some
yeah,
question.
sure.
Let's go ahead.
Please go ahead, Nagis.
So I just have one question. So this adverse effect management, that is the is this only for clinical trials, or it is like across when the medicine is available for medical
You
use, and then
can create, so Salesforce does not stop you from
mhm,
that, right? But
mhm,
end of the day, you need to know to which batch that adverse event is coming from. So
yeah.
that traceback needs to be there in the system. Otherwise, you cannot take any action on them. So you can create an adverse event for any activity, but the goal or just I'll go back here.
Focus area maybe.
Yeah, yeah. The focus area will be that this adverse event is happening because of so and so batch of the medicine, so that
Mhm.
if there is any kind of a callback required, so you can call back those adverse events, basically
Okay.
those medical samples.
Mhm. And this sample management is used across, right? When the
Yeah, yeah.
like MR
Sample
basically.
AMI visits the doctor,
Mhm.
so that time as well as like in the clinical trial as well, they manage the samples like, okay, I'm providing for this medical trial, this sample will be used from this batch.
Mhm.
So they can trace back like, okay, this batch is good, this batch is bad, and so on. Like I have heard some weird stories like, yeah, same formula made from two different batch can have two different kind of an result. And
Mhm.
some company burnt like billions of dollars to identify like what exactly is going wrong with the batches, because from the chemical composition point of view, they're exactly the same.
Same,
So they
yes.
really need to know like, yeah, from which batch that the medicines are coming from, so that they know like what is the impact of that.
Mhm. Okay. And for this event management, like I think I work for AstraZeneca, so they were
Hmm.
having they were using Viva, and along with that, they had some customization around the event management. Basically, when this MR visits happen, or the doctors will have conferences and all that, right?
Correct.
So is that
It's
part of the life sciences model, or it's
not yet. I know Salesforce is working on a event module as well.
Okay.
And again, like for one of my customer as well, they're also, because in Europe, events are really regulated. Like you
Mm-hmm.
cannot,
Yeah.
certain things are considered as bribe, basically. Like even though it is called event, so they need to really track every penny that they're spending on that specific event. So we are also asking Salesforce a lot, like, okay, what is the replacement of legacy, or let's say Viva world of event management in Salesforce?
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot in the demo, in presentation, but not in the official documentation yet. So
Okay.
from the exam point of view, I can say like you will not get anything around event management. But if you have to answer to a customer, it's a very difficult question to answer at this point. I know Salesforce is working behind the scene, so it
Mm-hmm.
will come for sure. But at this point,
As of
yeah,
now, it is not available. So.
it's not available.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
But I
Thank you.
also hear a lot of buzz around
Mm-hmm.
that event management, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like webinars, like Viva has a very good data model around event. Like you
Yeah.
can really do a lot around event management, but in Salesforce, not much yet. But I
Yeah.
think Salesforce was focused more on the mobile piece to it. So they figured that one out, because Salesforce mobile app was horrible, and that's why like
Mm-hmm.
Viva took such ahead of the game. And now as
Yeah.
well, like
They were
when
more comfortable with tabs and then phones.
yeah, correct,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's how they're marketing it as well, right? So they're saying like if you move to Viva CRM, right, like like Viva Vault CRM. So they're saying like, yeah, you will not have any impact, right? Because their assumption is everyone is working on the tab and their mobile devices, which is not changing. So the app will work as is. So that's how they're trying to convince the customers that, okay, it is zero impact for you. It's just a platform change behind the scene. So your medical reps or whoever is working on the field, there is zero impact for them. But again, like I am pro Salesforce, so I'm maybe biased. So, but yeah, I see there are a lot of changes, and customers has to go through that painful process of shifting either to Viva or to Salesforce. So either of them, whatever they choose, it has to be a lot of IT work before it goes live. So that's how
Yeah.
I look at it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Amit.
Thanks a lot, guys. If there is nothing else, so yeah, see you guys next week, and I'm hoping we will focus more on configuration next week rather than on the data model.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Amit. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Meet you.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to you guys again next week.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.